Are we seeing the first signs of a halt to the war between the US and Iran? The US gave Iran 48 hours to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, failing which they would attack Iran's energy infrastructure. Iran chose not to comply with this deadline. In my previous video, I asked whether Donald Trump had maybe gone into this war underestimating the capability of Iran and overestimating the US's ability to deliver a decisive and quick victory. Now, what is interesting now is that after the deadline has passed, Donald Trump has come out and stated that he's had productive talks with Iran and that based on this, he would be pausing the attacks on Iran's energy infrastructure for 5 days. Iran immediately responded by stating that there were no talks. Now, it is, however, likely that there are some sort of indirect back-channel talks going on between the US and Iran, obviously through intermediaries, but both sides would obviously message this depending on how they want to project or what they want to project. And also to remember that in conflicts like this, both sides can be telling the truth, just not the whole truth. Now, whichever side you choose to believe, I think it's important to understand that what we are seeing here is Trump trying to find an off-ramp where he can still claim victory, which is something that Iran would obviously be well aware of. And from Iran's perspective, it doesn't need to win this war in the traditional sense that it needs to defeat the US decisively on the battlefield. It just needs to survive long enough for the US to lose the political will to continue this war. And remember that Iran likely sees this war as a war of survival to defend its existence, or certainly the Iranian regime and the RGC. It doesn't have a choice but to continue with the conflict. The US, on the other hand, are fighting this war out of choice. And if we look back at history, even particularly as it relates to the US, any country fighting a war of choice, no matter how it's framed, will always face an uphill battle maintaining public support over time. And also considering that Trump ran on no more wars, and with the midterms coming up, he'll be very keen to exit this conflict without further escalation, all while being able to claim a victory back home for the American people. So from Iran's perspective, we're not likely to see much in the way of concessions or appeasement from Iran. I think they will probably feel like in the negotiations leading up to the beginning of the war now in March, they actually gave quite a bit in terms of concessions, and they feel now that they are not willing to give anything more, or certainly probably not even return to those concessions. And if anything, I think Iran probably feels that strategically it's in a stronger position than expected. And through a process of horizontal escalation, Iran is putting a lot of pressure on the coastal states through sustained drone attacks on their infrastructure. And this is in turn putting a lot of pressure on the US. Iran also has the ability to disrupt the Strait of Hormuz, enough to make it economically and politically painful. And obviously this affects the global energy markets, and the RGC and the Iranian regime still remain in firm control of the country. And also Iran is getting a lot of assistance in terms of intelligence, targeting data, maybe even drones from Russia and from China. And both those countries would be very keen, I think, for this war to continue, certainly to keep the US tied up. What we're likely to see in the coming days is that Trump will probably declare a victory of some sort by stating that Iran's nuclear program has been decisively destroyed again, and that their naval and air capability has been degraded enough that it's no longer a threat in the region. Now, in order to get Iran to agree to open the Strait of Hormuz, and this is the big one here because it's seriously affecting the energy markets, there will no doubt need to be some significant financial commitments made to Iran. Obviously, this is not something that the US would openly agree to, but we'll probably see some sort of shared process where the Gulf coastal states commit to helping Iran to rebuild, shared investment into the country. It might be framed something like that, politically trying to improve ties between Iran and its neighbors, welcoming them back into the fold, that sort of thing. So are we possibly seeing the first signs to the halt of war? Maybe, I don't know, but nothing that Iran has done up until now, and certainly its messaging suggests that it's backing down, and nothing that the US has really done, especially if we look at what the stated objectives were, and also intelligence reports leading up to the beginning of the war, the attacks last year in June against the nuclear infrastructure, And certainly the statements coming out of the White House, nothing really there indicates that the US has achieved the objective either. But what we are more likely are seeing now is that the moment where both sides realize that they have to find a way to stop fighting without admitting that they've lost.